County Office of Environmental Sustainability. It's a mouthful. We just call it the Environmental Office. It is just me here for now, but what I do as a recycling coordinator is I educate the residents, the public of Lackawanna County on different environmental topics, recycling being the biggest one, but I also have background in water and water pollution, conservation, waste reduction, and try to also talk about reduction in litter. And so also as a recycling coordinator, I act as a liaison between the state, so the Department of Environmental Protection for Pennsylvania, and the towns here in Lackawanna County, like our 40 municipalities. And so there's different recycling state grants that are offered every year. I kind of help out with that, answer any questions, and any like news about recycling or our laws. I will help to relay that information. And then, just any program support. We'll talk about the different types of programs we have here. So really just kind of, being helpful where I can. So the next hour, we're kind of going to talk about, like I said, the basics of recycling and, maybe kind of give you some tips and answer some questions at the end that you might have. So, I will, there is time, I think, scheduled in for some questions, which is good. All right, so just a habit of being an educator, I'm going to define recycling and talk about what it means and why we kind of associate it with being like a green or environmentally friendly practice. Recycling is a process, so it's a process of taking a material and making it into something new. So I have here, my trusty recycling triangle. And the arrows actually can also represent a part of the process. So the first step is you yourself, actually recycling. So you take your, soda can or your Amazon box and you put it in your recycling bin. That is the most important step. And then we have the next arrow, which is that item taken to a recycling center and then being sorted and processed, made into a new item. So your, Amazon box could become another Amazon box. And then the third part of the process is the purchase of that material or that new item, I'm sorry. So, somebody buys, that box, it's used, and then it starts all over again. So each arrow is an important step, but I also just kind of wanted to promote the use of you're buying materials or items with recycled material in it. That's really important for the economics of recycling, that there's a need or a use for that recycled material to be used to make into something new. So you might hear me say a couple times recycling also has to do with the economy and economics. So we'll touch on that side of it as well today. So why is recycling good? Why is it good for our earth? So using recycled materials means that we're using less of virgin or raw materials. And a virgin or a raw material, that's something we get here from our earth. The biggest example I could give is oil. Plastics are derived from oil. So instead of, taking that oil out to make plastics, we can, with some of our plastics, recycle it to make new plastics. So that's a big example with that. Also trees, our paper fibers, come from trees. And so by using paper to be recycled to make more paper, means that we're also, stopping the degradation of our forests. Okay, and then what else? So recycling also reduces or, stops us from that item from going to the landfill. So it saves landfill space. So by recycling an item, you're giving it a new life instead of it sitting in a landfill for years and years. We do have 2 landfills here in Lackawanna County. So I think for our residents, it's extremely important to try to keep as much out of those landfills as we can. And then for like the last big reason is recycling does save energy. So by using recycled materials, we can actually save energy in the manufacturing process. So here we have our aluminum cans. Aluminum is made from bauxite, which is, a mineral that is mined. And just by using aluminum cans to make new aluminum cans, we save about 95% energy than using that raw material. So, that's just one example of many that we're also saving energy. So why else do we recycle here in Pennsylvania? Recycling is a law. So we actually have a law here. It's called Act 101. It has a long name. It's the Municipal Waste Planning, Recycling, and Waste Reduction Act. But we just call it the recycling law. So it went into effect in 1988. But the good thing is a bunch of our towns already were recycling before that. So good job. And with that law, basically the big takeaway from that is towns here in Pennsylvania that have a population of 5,000 or more people, the town has to provide a recycling program for their residents. So we have about 12 towns here who are mandated by that law, so mandated they have to, by that law, provide some sort of curbside program. Curbside meaning, your bins you put out on the curb for the residents. So 12 have to do that, but we actually have about 30 towns who still try to coordinate some sort of recycling for their residents, which is great. So 30 out of 40. But that doesn't mean those other towns can't recycle. And we'll kind of talk about some other ways that they have to recycle. So from that law, here it was opened in 1990, the Lackawanna Recycling Center. It opened up. It's on 3400 Boulevard Avenue in Scranton. At that time, it was county owned. The county built it with the state grants. And now it has been privately operated since 2005. But you still, as a Lackawanna County resident, could take your recyclables down to the center free of charge, and there's a drop-off area. So I just wanted to also, if you live somewhere more rural, where you don't have a program, there's always that option to take your materials down to the recycling center. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about the materials. This is like the big one. What can I recycle? So it is different depending on where you live, not just in the state, but kind of across the nation. So what I'm talking to everybody about tonight is just for Lackawanna County. So just for our county, the basics, because really wherever you go, even from town to town, recycling is different. There isn't a standard kind of across the nation. There's been some talk about eventually doing it, but for now, every county here in Pennsylvania has a recycling coordinator like myself. So we are trained to educate it for our area. All right, so let's get into the materials. So we have first our plastics. I'm going to give a brief overview, then we'll kind of go into detail a little more. So plastics, we have our bottles, jars, and sometimes our jugs. So we have like our soda bottles here, and you guys will see my props. I have a lot of props. We have our bottles, ketchup bottle, jars, like our jar of peanut butter. And then like, you know, you have a milk jug or a vinegar jug. And then we'll move on to glass bottles and jars. So we have here like a pickle jar, spaghetti jar. You know, sometimes some sodas still come in a glass bottle if you get like a fancy soda, your beer bottles. And then we have our steel and aluminum cans. So our soda cans, soup cans, sometimes coffee cans are still made out of metal, and also coffee cans made out of plastic as well. Okay, and then we have our paper. So office paper, newspaper. So this is considered paper board, which are a lot of like our cereal boxes and soda boxes. We also, you know, cardboard boxes and brown paper bags. Those are the basics. And now I just want to kind of get into each item a little bit more specifically. So the big one is plastics. This is where I'd say about 95% of confusion comes from with recycling. And that's okay. That's why we're here. So why do I say plastic, you know, bottles, jars, jugs, and then the exception, the plastic coffee can? So if you see, now I don't know if you would be able to see this over the camera, but you know, you see on a lot of plastic items, almost all of them have a recycling triangle on it. And you'll see the numbers 1 through 7. Some counties, they do educate by number. What that means is they'll say plastics numbers 1 and 2 can be recycled. But here, and how my predecessor has educated, is we do by shape, because we just think that might be easier for our residents. And I think it's been working pretty good. So what do those numbers mean? Those numbers that are on the bottom of the plastics, they kind of represent the type of plastic that item is made from. So you have numbers 1 through 7, 7 being other. So 7 could really be a bunch of different plastics, and they all have a different formula, and they all are different. So, you know, this is our number 2 plastic. It's called Hdpe as a short, you know, name. You know, it's hard, it's rigid, it's a very good plastic to recycle. Sometimes you'll see it colored, like your Tide bottles. And then we have our, oh, this is gonna not have it on the bottom of it. Then we have our number 1, which is PET, and that is like our more squishy, you know, bottles. Okay. And then, you know, we have 3, 4, or 5, but, you know, we're not going to really go into that because I don't want to cause any confusion. So now we have these guys, right? These are our containers. A lot of people get these, you know, sometimes for takeout. You know, so, you know, I don't know if anyone is a big fan of coffee, Dunkin' Donuts, you know, your plastic coffee cups. You know, we have all of these different plastic items, straws. If you like berries, berry boxes, strawberry boxes. So those items can't go in most of your curbside recycling bins or at the recycling center down here in Scranton. And that is because each of those items I just ran off, they all have a different number. So they all have to be sorted. And unfortunately, the center here in Scranton, they just don't have the infrastructure to sort all of those plastics. Now, when I say by most programs, there are private haulers that operate within the county. Some of you might have them. You have JP Mascaro, Waste Management, and County Waste. So those are larger companies. So they kind of operate maybe across a few different states. Their centers are a lot larger than anything we have here in our county. So I was just looking at some of their education sheets, and they are available online. So if you ever have a question about your specific hauler, they all have recycling education sheets, which are really great. And some of them, I believe it's county waste, they do say they accept containers. I would just check though with, I would call whoever your service people is, but that, you know, they might also accept that. But plastic bottles, jars, and jugs are always recyclable. That's why we just stick to those, because no matter where you are here in Lackawanna County, no matter who you have, what program you have, they're recyclable. So toward the end, we have questions. If anyone has questions about a specific plastic item, there are so many. So I would just love to hear your guys' questions on that at the end. So we'll move on to glass. So there's tons of different glass items, windows, mirrors, vases, but only glass bottles and jars that, have like food or drink in them will be recycled or can be recycled. And that is because those other items I just told you about, mirrors, windshields, windows, they all have different, additives. So it's not just pure glass. And so when you have all those different items and they're kind of, smashed together, when they get to the recycling center and they go to be made into something new and it's melted down, well, all of those different glass products are going to have different melting temperatures. So you're kind of going to have an end product that is bumpy. There's a bunch of different pieces of glass stuck in it because they all didn't melt at the same temperature. Here, oh man, you might not be able to see, but this is like an imperfection in the pickle jar. There's like a little piece of glass that wasn't melted. It's because it was probably something other than pure glass. So anything, glass, if you consider it a bottle or a jar, it's good to put in your bin. Then, there isn't too much confusion, I'd say, with aluminum and steel cans. Some programs might accept aluminum foil, in addition to the can. Again, I think it was just county waste, but they all have their education sheets. It wouldn't be something you would put if you're going to the recycling center. And if you are recycling your aluminum foil, please just make sure it's clean and doesn't have any food on it. But yeah, your steel soup cans, your aluminum, soda cans are good to put in your bin. And then now we'll talk about paper more specifically. So we have your cardboard boxes. There's been a lot of cardboard coming in because of the pandemic. It's good because cardboard, is something that is, can easily be recycled, and it's really sought after in the recycling industry. So we love cardboard. And then we have our newspaper and those inserts, your coupons, magazines are good to be put in your bin. Just your town might have a different day for like newspaper and cardboard, or newspaper, office paper and cardboard. And then you have your writing paper, always good to be recycled. And then brown paper bags. And then with cereal boxes, we just ask that any of your inserts, like sometimes there's a plastic liner with your cereal in it, just throw that out. Don't put the plastic in with the paper. And also, I want to kind of talk about paper cups real quick. So paper cups would not be recycled in your curbside bin, mainly just because they are kind of a a thinner paper fiber. And also, you can't really see, if we were together, I would probably pass this around so everybody can feel, but a lot of them have like a wax lining inside of them. And that wax isn't good when it's going to be processed. That wax can kind of get over everything and contaminate. So for right now, please don't put any like paper coffee cups in your recycling bin. And then I just kind of want to touch on some common questions. Styrofoam. I don't know of any curbside programs that accept styrofoam, so styrofoam cups, food containers, packing materials. There is a business in Scranton, Anthracite Auto and Recycling, who does take styrofoam to be recycled. They have a really nifty machine. And so I will put some information up at the end of where I have kind of a business list of hard to recycle items and where you can take them, and their information will be listed. But that is the only place I know of nearby that would actually recycle your styrofoam. And then I'm trying to think of some common questions we had, like plastic bags, and like any like plastic film. Most grocery stores will accept that, which is great. Just make sure they're clean and dry, but please don't put any sort of like plastic bag or film in your recycling bin. And again, if I missed anything or anybody has a question about a specific item or what do I recommend, we're gonna, we'll answer that. There's just so much out there. We would be here for hours. So, all right, now let's talk about the collection. So you kind of have a good idea about the different materials. Let's talk about how to prepare the recyclables and how they're collected. So any of your bottles, jars, and cans that had shampoo, sauce, or any sort of like food, drink residue, just please make sure it's just a quick rinse, or it's emptied out or dried out. And this is important, especially if you have single stream recycling, which we'll talk about now. Single stream recycling means everything that I just talked about is in the same bin. So your plastics, your metal, your paper, and your glass all goes into one bin. This is a newer type of recycling. I would say maybe 10 years, maybe a little more, that got introduced into this area. And so what the downside of it is all of your paper is mixed in with your containers, or I shouldn't say containers, but your bottles, jars, and cans. And if you had like spaghetti sauce left over, or some soda, that can ruin the paper in the bin. And water is fine, but it's when like grease or sauce or anything sticky, it's ruining the quality of the paper that's also in your bin. And what that can lead to is it could contaminate, depending on how dirty that load is. It can lead to something that you thought you were recycling actually could be thrown out. So contamination is a really big issue with single stream processing. So it really, education is important. It really starts with the individual. If you could just make sure your recyclables it doesn't have to be scrubbed. Again, just a quick rinse, making sure it's emptied out. And so who we have for single stream, that is those bigger haulers, JP Mascaro, Waste Management, County Waste. When you see their trucks and, they're single stream, all going into one. And those companies have the infrastructure and I would say like machines or instruments. I apologize for not knowing the jargon for that, but to sort these items out. So rarely will they sort by hand. They actually have a series of conveyor belts and optics that'll sort it out, which, you know, they could, you know, tell, you know, a piece of paper from, you know, a plastic bottle. So that is what single stream is. And then we have, you know, dual stream, which means two. And any of the municipalities or towns that still pick up with their Department of Public Works, transporting it down to the Lackawanna Recycling Center, that is their method of collection, dual stream. And so any of your paper fiber, your cardboard is kept separate from your bottles, jars, and cans. So that is kind of how we started out here in the county originally. And then, you know, single stream was introduced and became more common. And so with, you know, by sorting, you know, some of these items beforehand, you know, it takes a little bit more work by the resident or the individual, but it's a lot easier to sort. And, you know, sometimes the product is a little bit more cleaner because, again, those items are kept separate. It's easier to rinse off one of these. It's not so easy to rinse off something like this. But again, technology is advancing in the recycling industry. So, you know, I'm not going to say single stream is bad because and you know, you hear about improvements all the time. All right. And then let's kind of go over then real quick what happens now when that material actually gets to the recycling center. So gets to the recycling center, it's sorted out, whether it be, you know, by machines and optics, or robotics, or by hand. And then the materials are all baled up, which means it's just compacted and put into like a big square of the same, or rectangle of the material, and then it is marketed. So that means there's a company who wants, you know, they want a bunch of aluminum cans because they're making aluminum cans. So they would purchase that bale of recycled material so they can use it in their manufacturing. And so that's why we kind of talk about why recycling has to do with economics, because, you know, in order for recycling to work, there has to be a need or, you know, a desire, demand for that particular material. You know, if, you know, people don't want aluminum cans, well, what's going to happen to those bales that you made of aluminum cans? So it's really important, and you're going to see it a lot of companies are starting to include recycled materials. And I think Coca-Cola just announced it's going to start making their bottles out of a large content of recycled plastic, which is great. So once it goes to remanufacturer, you know, it's processed. So I kind of just want to quickly go through what happens with our PET plastic, so our thin, you know, water bottles, because it is kind of cool. So it comes up, you know, to the remanufacturer, you know, the warehouse, the factory, and the bale of plastic is chopped up. So it's chopped up into tiny pieces, just like the size of your pinky nail. So very, you know, they're like flakes of plastic. And then it is, and this is a very watered down version. So, you know, please, yeah, there's tons of videos about it online, but this is just a very like, you know, a fun version of it. So then the plastic bottles that are chopped up, they're going into like kind of like a big pot of water where they're steam cleaned. So any like labels or gunk that was on them, you know, it's all cleaned off. So then, you know, and this is just our clear, not our colored. So they are all nice and clean. And then it goes into this machine that it is like, once it's heated up and it spins around kind of like the holes in a washing machine. And then what comes out of the other end is a fiber. And again, man, you might not be able to see it, and I apologize, but it kind of looks like cotton balls, except it's plastic. So these tiny little fibers are made. And with that fiber, a lot of stuff is made. So from that fiber, we can make carpet, we can make fleece or clothing. I have here a t-shirt that was made from, recycled plastic water bottles. And that material actually is called polyester. So even like some of your clothing you guys might have on right now, it's made from polyester. And so the first company, I believe, I think here in the United States is Patagonia. They make a lot of like outerwear. They were the first company to use recycled polyester in their clothing. So that kind of created, a way, and we have all of these plastic items, a way for them to be reused again into all these different materials. Okay, and so now that we talked about plastic, just with any other material, your thicker plastics, they could be made into, it's a similar process where they're, chopped up, made into pellets. They could make anywhere from decking, countertop. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Trex. It kind of looks like wood, but it's actually plastic, and it's pretty durable. So, some of your thicker plastics, you can make other plastic items, like a Frisbee, Legos, like toys. But so that is what recycled plastic could be made into. But then once you get into, it's made into like a toy or an item or a container, that is kind of where it ends. Just at least for our area, we don't have the ability to process those other items. And then with glass is melted down, and it's just blown, it's clean, melted down, and then molded into new glass bottles and jars. And glass can be recycled over and over again. And what I also would like to talk about with glass is that I'm seeing a trend, not like in Pennsylvania, but kind of in other states as well, is some programs don't want glass anymore. And that is because glass is also a contaminant. And how, you might ask, is because if you have, plastic bottles and jars, and you also have glass, and the glass gets smashed, well, some of those glass pieces can end up inside your, other bottles and jars. And that's kind of hard to get out of there. So that's how glass can be a contaminant. And also glass is really hard on machines. So, it could wear away, some older machines in recycling centers. So I've been seeing, and I don't know if anyone has been affected in the county yet, but I think Waste Management, they're starting to kind of take away glass in some of their programs. Right now, the recycling center still accepts glass, but I'll certainly let anybody know if that'll change in the future. But if anybody sees that, that's kind of why. Even though glass could be recycled on and on and on, it's been a major problem recently, just as a contaminant, which is kind of odd, but it makes sense. Okay, so then we'll talk about cans real quick. How cans are recycled. They're melted down and cleaned, and then they're pressed into sheets and stamped out new cans. So just a quick overview to give an idea. And paper, paper separated out, and then Like for instance, you have just your office paper. So anything that's making office paper, it's kind of put into a big pot and then it's heated up. It's kind of like a slurry, if anybody can kind of picture that. And any of your dyes are taken out, like they use kind of like some detergents. So any coloring, any ink is washed out. And then depending if you're making white paper, it'll be recolored, or if you're making, something like newspaper or brown paper, mostly will just be left whatever color it is, and it's just pressed and dried and until you get your big sheets, or corrugated cardboard is just layers and layers of the paper fiber. So again, just a brief overview of kind of how everything is processed. It's, very much more detailed, but just for the sake of time, we'll kind of keep going here. Okay, so now that we went through the basic curbside items, I want to touch on some heavy topics, electronics being one of them. So there is a big problem, not only here in our county with electronics, but across the state of Pennsylvania. So why is that? So back in 2013, a law went into effect called the Covered Device Recycling Act, or Act 108, or we also just call it the Pennsylvania Electronics Law. And that prohibited the landfilling of TVs, computers, laptops, monitors, printers, and keyboards, mouses. They're called like peripherals, really like anything you would plug into a computer. So you're not, our state government, was seeing a problem with all of this electronic litter, and it was going into our landfills. And, when you kind of think of what some of those electronics have, like especially your big tube TVs, all of those chemicals, it's going and being smashed in a landfill, and, it kind of poses an environmental risk. So with this law kind of put the responsibility of the recycling of these materials or items on the manufacturers who make these items. So you have Sony, HP, Apple, Samsung. And what they said is, they have to put it's a quota system. So they have to fund a certain amount of electronics recycling per year, but that number is based on the weight of sales 2 years prior. So when in 2013, by that time we had, we had our flat screen TVs, we started getting our smaller phones, lighter electronics, and people were recycling heavy TVs, basically like pieces of furniture. We like to say, very heavy, bulky, old electronics. So this system that was put in place for funding, it didn't work. Funding for these programs to recycle, they kind of dried up. And by 2016, this law has completely fallen apart. And ever since, we've been trying to get it fixed. Our senators have been trying to get it fixed. It just hasn't been fixed yet, I guess, for lack of a better word, but it is like the number one priority here, especially for this office, but all across the state, all of the recycling coordinators, we know it's the biggest issue. And so that's why, we used to have some, stores, some mom and pop shops, and even the recycling center down in Scranton, they used to take TVs and all these different electronics, and they all closed. And, now the recycling center doesn't take TVs. And currently in our county, there aren't any businesses that you can recycle a TV at. Now, if it still works, if your TV is in good condition, and it may be a little bit newer. Sometimes you would be able to donate that through Salvation Army or Goodwill. But if it's broken, you would have to go out of county. And again, I do have some information on that that I'll put kind of toward the end of the presentation. But for some other items like computers, small monitors, and like your other electronics, like sometimes gaming systems, you have mouses, keyboards, printers, a lot of electronics stores in the area, they still take those for free. They just don't want to take any of your TVs. So I would call your local like electronics or office supply store, because a lot of them still recycle these items, which is great. And then if there's anything I can ask, if you guys really, if you maybe yourself have experienced a hard time getting rid of some of your electronics, the only way it's going to get fixed is, in our state Congress. So, on our website, we say, if you do feel strongly about it, please contact your state representative and ask them to fix the electronics law, because that's the only way this is going to get better. Otherwise, some towns are doing their own collections for their residents. That is becoming more popular, which I'm very thankful for, that some of these towns are stepping up. And with that, though, usually it ends up being a charge on the resident, because otherwise these places, they do charge per pound of electronics being recycled. And if you have a good turnout, it's a very large bill. So, if you do see one of those events and you do see like maybe a $10, $15, $20 charge to get rid of all your stuff, just know it's really helping, for us to be able to have any sort of event like this. So I just wanted to kind of go through that with everybody and kind of explain why there's such a big issue with electronics recycling. And then another big question I get in the office is paint. Now this is, with the pandemic, a lot of people are home, so they have a lot of free time, unfortunately, when they're cleaning out their basements. So every day I get a call about paint. For paint, actually, if it's still in good condition, we always recommend, can it be reused? Can it be given to a friend or a family member? If not, if it's really old, we recommend, having some kitty litter handy, or shredded newspaper, sawdust, or even they sell a paint hardener at the hardware stores, or you can just leave the lid off in a well-ventilated area, and if there's just a little bit, it might be able to solidify on its own. That's the goal with paint. You wanted to get it solidified so that when it is collected, it doesn't pose any risk of like splattering. And with latex paint is not considered a hazardous waste. So you'll kind of see this, some of our other colleagues in other counties, they just recommend putting it out with your trash collection, just a can or two at a time. Because even though that paint can is, it is a metal can, how else would you get rid of that paint? We wouldn't recommend you pouring it down the drain, because we don't want to really pour anything down our drains. So that's why we say just put it out with your trash collection. So that, I hope that, answers any questions anyone had about paint. Aerosol cans, spray paints, hairspray. Most of the recycling collections do take aerosol cans. Just make sure they're completely emptied out. But if they had anything like a pesticide or some like harmful chemical, you wouldn't want to put that into your recycling bin. And again, if a neighbor can reuse that, it's best. Otherwise, you'd have to look into, calling out actually like a special company to um, remove or, take that item. That's with any of your, gallons of herbicides or pesticides you might have. Some people have some pretty potent pool chemicals. With that stuff, a lot of it you'd have to unfortunately call a company. Here in Lackawanna County, we don't have right now any household hazardous waste collections. So I started in this position about a year and a half ago. So I'm now kind of learning about, all of this and what we can do and what, maybe we can kind of make work. So it's not a no never for one of those collections. So that is something I'm also working on. And then let's see, we have tires. That's a big question. There are a couple companies or businesses in the area that'll recycle tires for a small fee, usually like $3, $4, or $5. I'll attach that information. It's called my hard to recycle list. And so that has all of the businesses on it in our area. Also, depending on how things go with the pandemic in the fall, the county might be sponsoring their annual tire collection event. We didn't have it last year because, with handling cash and things, it just wasn't a good idea and crowding of people. So hopefully we'll get to have that in the fall. But yet tires can be recycled. Batteries, rechargeable batteries can be recycled at a lot of your big name stores in the area, like your, like Target, Best Buy, sometimes even Lowe's and Home Depot. But if you have single-use batteries, there are some towns who have drop-offs for them, but not all. The best thing to do, you can buy a kit online. It would be a cost to you, but they do make kits for single-use batteries to mail in. But I always just recommend whenever you can, buy rechargeables because, rechargeables are easy to recycle and you can use them over and over again before they, are out of their life. All right. And then appliances, I get a lot of calls about, microwaves, fridges, air conditioners. So scrap yards are a great place. Scrap yards are actually the original recyclers, if you think about it. So a lot of them will take appliances, not much electronics. You can ask. Sometimes they do change what they want and what they don't want. Never really TVs though. And then also if you are a PPL customer, some they do a rebate program with it. Depending on the item you have, the appliance, they'll actually come pick it up and take it from you. Like say you're getting a new fridge and they'll actually give you a rebate toward your bill. So, and that's still like a current thing and they actually come and take it. So I'm just kind of want to go over some of the outlets we have here in the area. But I think that kind of wraps up what I wanted to touch on. I think, Susan, we'll start going into some questions. I saw some pop up.
Yes, so we have a couple of questions. So the first one is from Fawn. She says, what do you recommend people do with their plastics that aren't bottles that can't go on the curbside? We have been being more conscientious about plastic. Seems to be unavoidable. So what do we do with like yogurt, takeout, berry containers, and plastic cups that many snacks come in?
Yeah, so what I do personally with any like containers I have, I first try to reuse them. So especially with these like takeout containers, if they're pretty sturdy, I use them actually for like organization. Sometimes I use them I have a lot of plants, so I'll use them to catch water. But what my first recommendation is avoid buying them if you can, which I know is really, it's plastic. Almost everything comes. I mean, you can't even buy vegetables now without some type of plastic being on them. So if it's something sturdy, try to reuse it. Yogurt cups. they could be used to start, plants. Some schools, I remember using like egg cartons and cups for paint. If you could try to reuse it, but otherwise, there are some stuff. There is a company called Terra Cycle, Terra Cycle. It is it's a huge recycler. I believe it's based out of New York, but they have recycling bins you can get sent to you. Sometimes it's at a cost, but they do accept a large number of items to be recycled. But those are my best suggestions for right now. I'm hoping things change in the future for the better with these different plastics, but for right now, options are pretty limited.
All right, and then Jill has 2 questions for you. She says, pizza boxes, can we recycle them?
Yeah, so pizza boxes. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't mention this earlier. It's a big topic as well. So, all right, with pizza boxes. Some places are good. They'll put like a liner on the bottom, like a wax liner. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but the grease is the biggest problem, the grease and the cheese. So if there's a liner, take it out. And if the bottom looks good, you could put the whole box in. If the bottom of the box is just really gross, a lot of grease stains, a lot of sauce, a lot of cheese, my best suggestion, rip it in half, and just recycle the top half. Because I've been seeing a lot of programs, they're actually they're just not taking any part of the box. That's kind of my answer. It depends on what it looks like. But yes, it can be recycled as long as it's in pretty good condition.
And she also asks, should you leave lids on for single stream?
Yeah, so lids now, it's changed in the past, but everywhere I read and even when I've spoken to the recycling center here, lids are okay. And that's also a good way to kind of determine if something is good to be recycled. Generally, if it has like a screw top, it's a good plastic item to be recycled. But yes, lids are okay.
And then, let's see. Another one of our members knows for a fact that TerraCycle has a Rubbermaid free program for storage containers like the ones you showed. So the takeout containers, TerraCycle does have a program. Jill also asks, is it safe to put single-use batteries in the regular garbage?
So single-use batteries, they do have a lot of kind of different heavy metals in them. So it's not the best thing for the environment. If you can put them into, a container, like if you have like maybe like something like a heavy plastic, like a coffee can is like a heavy plastic, something that maybe you can put them in to kind of prevent any of that stuff kind of getting out. The main thing is we don't want that stuff ending up in our waters. The landfills, I don't want to get into it too much, but, they should have, materials in place to prevent this. But sometimes you kind of hear in other areas that, there might be some contamination. But yeah, they're not the best, but unfortunately sometimes with this stuff, it's either hold on to them until there is an outlet, or you can try to maybe just package them up so that none of that stuff is kind of leaching out.
John asks, what about metal lids on glass jars?
Good question. Metal lids are not recyclable. So, where plastic lids are, metal lids take off. And again, some people use those lids. I remember in school, we used metal lids for glue. I don't know if anyone has ever had an experience with that, but we used to have our glue for our art projects and like metal Snapple lids. So, I mean, that's a good reuse idea, but no, doesn't go into your bin. Great question.
Fawn asks, what about the bags that chips and cereals come in? Are there any local programs that accept those hard to recycle?
Not that I know of. Um, Again, maybe that, it looks like that TerraCycle does might be able to accept some of those items. I don't have too much, familiarity with them that, because they're not local. But I think did someone just comment something about that?
Yes, so apparently most Subaru dealers, in conjunction with TerraCycle, take chip and snack bags, even energy bar wrappers, according to Tina,
Okay,
which I did not know.
that's great. Thank you for sharing.
And John asks, pie tins, are they recyclable?
So not at the recycling center. So not if you have like a program that uses the Lackawanna Recycling Center, but I believe here I do have so this is the county waste recycling education sheet. You might not be able to see it, but they do say pie plates on there. But I haven't seen it on JP Mascaro's or Waste Management. So, but again, pie plates might be able to reuse for bringing your food. That's what a lot of these things I reuse too for food. So.
And then we also have old or unused medications. Do you recycle those?
So medication drop-offs are a lot of our local pharmacies and police stations actually have drop-offs for medications. But at the recycling center or in your curbside program, no, they don't accept any medications. Also, please don't flush any out because that can eventually, that medication can eventually end up in our waters and affect any aquatic life. So yeah, I think I just drove by Troop a few days ago. They have a drop off outside by their police station. We have one in the county courthouse. There's one in CVS and Clark Summit. So they're all over, which is great.
And let's see. Oh, Tina and Fawn both commented. So Tina says, if you look up Subaru Loves America, they take K-cups, creamers, any disposal cups, lids, and straws as well. And Fawn says there will be a medication take-back event at the Valley Community Library in April. Yes, Fawn, I believe it is April 24th. It is on a Saturday. They'll actually have it on the library website, and I will have that information posted here at Library Express here shortly. But they are having a medication take-back event through the library at the
That's
Valley Community.
awesome. That's great. Thanks for putting that in there for everyone to know. Oh, all right. And do we have any other questions? Anything maybe I talked about that I maybe wasn't clear on? It's a lot. I know it's a lot of information for an hour.
I say, if you need to unmute yourself to ask, you may. There's no problem with that. You may unmute yourself if you need to ask questions. I know not everybody has a computer. Some of you are listening from your phones. So I'll just give you all a minute to do that if needed. John asks, is it okay to wash and or soak containers in soapy water, etc.?
Yeah, that's you don't need to, but I mean it's fine if you do. The cleaner the better.
And Jill says, this has been super informative. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jill, for attending.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to see that we have some really interested residents. Again, recycling is only gonna, it's as successful as, it starts with the individual person putting that item in the bin. So if we could help reduce contamination right from the start, I mean, that's just great. That really helps.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make you a host so that way you can share your screen. So okay. There you go. You're now the host. You can now share your screen because I believe you have some information to share with us.
Yeah, let's see. I just wanted to, just so everybody can see, oh gee, can everybody see that?
I know I can.
So yeah. Just in case anyone might come across something in the future, they might have a question. Now, the hard to recycle list I was referring to, because there's so many different businesses depending on the item, our website, recycling.lackawannacounty.org, there's a link to that list on there. Just kind of has a couple different materials and some businesses in the area, that were okay with me kind of advertising that they accept that item. And yeah, that's it for me. This was great. Thank you guys so much.
Alrighty. If anybody else has any other questions, now is your time to ask. I'll be turning this off in just a couple minutes. Again, if you need any of this information, just go ahead. You can email me and I will send it off to you. If you have any other questions, I can more than gladly share this information, especially if you can't see the screen. And we did record this session. It will be going up on the library's YouTube here within the next week or so. So keep your eye on that. And I think that is everything. So thank you everybody for attending. And thank you for coming out and learning more about the basics of recycling, especially here in Lackawanna County. And I'd like to thank our wonderful guest host, Nicole, for joining us and taking time out of her lovely day to give us some information, if you will.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
everybody.
night.
All right.
Good
Night,
night.
everybody.